Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest today is Jonathan Weinberger, founder at GameDevHQ. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Thanks.
For anyone who might not be aware of who you are, what GameDevHQ is, could you please give them a little bit of a background about your story? Obviously, what made you start the business and what you guys do there?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a completely self-taught software engineer. I've been doing this for the last 17 years. I'm the CEO of GameDevHQ, and we use game development as a gateway to software engineering. So learning to code by building video games, it's fun, it's exciting, it's going to keep you interested. But all of that logic and problem solving actually carries over seamlessly to the enterprise world. So most of our students actually work for big tech companies like Google, Amazon, Netflix, things like that. But it all stems from coding video games.
That is so interesting because from a space value, you hear the name, and the first thing that comes to my mind, at least, is maybe that younger audience, which is just looking to build that side of their career and really start getting things going with coding and really learn the foundation to then build anything else that they might want. But it doesn't sound like that's fully the case for you.
Yeah, I would say so we definitely do have a younger demographic that's like, early high school career seekers, homeschool alternatives, things like that,
Hmm.
where parents are looking at, hey, I want to get my kid into technology. Our
Hmm.
programs are fantastic for that, but we do see and we do help a lot of career transitioners. So those who are actually most of our students, they're hospitality workers, bartenders, hotel staff, people who don't have a traditional tech background.
Hmm.
They want a better career, earning $1,000 or more. And so working with us, learning to code through game development, breaking into tech that way, it's just a better alternative to than going to college for 4 years, going through a coding
Hmm.
boot camp, things like that. But yeah, most of our students, a lot of them are career transitioners, and last year our average age was like 35 years old. So yeah, it's a
That's
good
really,
mix.
really interesting. And thank you for sharing that. Could you talk to me a little bit more about the origin story of Game Dev HQ? Kind of what was that light bulb moment for you to really want to build this and pursue this path that you're on?
Yeah, so that stems like 17 years ago, I think. Maybe like, gosh, man. So I'm 32 now, but
You don't look
17
it?
years ago, yeah, thanks. 17 years ago, man, I was playing a game called RuneScape in like 2004 to 2007 growing up.
Hmm.
That was like my favorite game of all time. And then somewhere around 2007, the developers changed the game to where I no longer liked it, but I wanted to play the old version of the game. And so I got involved in the modding community and I started developing like RuneScape private servers, which got me into wanting to make my own games. The
Hmm.
challenge with that was that I was a terrible student all throughout school. I didn't have the means to go to a game development college. So, today those colleges are like 120 to 160,000 dollars a year. Or I'm sorry, 100, yeah, sorry, 80 to like 120,000 for the 4 years.
Hmm.
When I was going to school back then, it was still 60 to 80,000 for those 4 years. So it was crazy expensive. But I wanted to make video games, and
Hmm.
so I self-taught myself how to code and make my own games. I picked up Unity the day it became free. I obsessed over it. Got a job at Cartoon Network by the time I was 20, authored a book on programming at that age as well. And actually, that happened first. I was like when I launched that book.
Wow,
And
nice.
then all the job offers, man. I just started making games, worked for Cartoon Network. AT&T, Coca-Cola came in, was like, hey, we need someone who can do augmented reality stuff. I had 4 years of Unity experience, and
Hmm.
here I am just like diving into software engineering with no degree. And then I started just teaching other people how to do the exact same thing I did. And to my surprise, people started getting jobs too. And so I
Yeah.
kind of just fell into this path where I had this ability to help people learn to code in a way where it made sense. And
Hmm.
from that, people just started getting careers.
That's really, really awesome. And it comes, there's I think there's always a point in everybody's journey in which they start to have this own thing where they want to do this certain path and they pursue it and they figure out how to do it and they're like, ah, I must be the only one. But you're never the only one. As soon as you start teaching people how to do the exact same thing that you went through, is like there's so many more people that want to go on that same path. And it's really awesome. It's really awesome how that came along. I've actually never really played RuneScape, but it was always on the side window for me. It was always like maybe I'll get into it. I never got into it, but I do have a lot of friends that were crazy about it. And how big is your team right now?
Yeah, so GameDev HQ at its peak this year, we were 18. We've been hit with some higher interest rates. We predominantly rely on like private student loans, so we've downsized a bit. But at our peak this year, we were 18, and we're completely distributed across the U.S. So
Hmm.
our COO is in Canada.
Big ups, Canada.
Yeah, she's our most foreign employee, and actually that's not true. Our managing director now is actually based out of Tashkent, Uzbekistan now. But we are fully distributed. I'm the only one. I'm sorry. Our head of engineering was also in Hawaii. Outside of that, everyone is
Hmm.
across the U.S. from California to Alabama.
Hmm. And I want to ask you a question that you might be so bored and tired of hearing, but obviously AI is a huge buzzword and trend, and it's everything that everyone talks about, right? But from so many conversations that I've had, it seems there is a large majority of people, especially the older population, I would say, that they understand that it's very important for them to just jump into it, but they
Mhm.
kind of jump into it blindly and just fully trust it. And with something like coding, which there are many minor things that could mess up the entire system, that doesn't seem to be the smartest thing to do. Could you talk to me a little bit more about how implementing AI, if you implement AI into your business and the whole dynamic that you see around that whole topic?
Yeah, AI is a unique category for us. So as software engineers, as programmers, there's a lot of generative AI out there that can write code for you. ChatGPT can do it. You got GitHub Copilot, things like that. It's all very impressive. The way we use AI, especially in our programs now, is we use AI to 10x our learning and understanding. Engineers are not going away. You can't replace smart engineers with AI. You can't just fully rely on it. Generative AI in the realm of what we're seeing in like 3D art and animation, CG pipelines, that stuff is terrifying. And I have
Hmm.
friends who are in the art industry that look at that and they're like, well, I'm out of a job next week. Versus the AI side of it, I've seen some really cool tools that are like, damn, this would have taken me like 3 months to do that can now be done within minutes. Like a great
Hmm.
example is Bolt. Bolt.new is this incredible platform that lets you create like micro SaaS products and deploy them. But if you ever need to customize something, if something breaks, once again, you still need an actual engineer who knows what's
Hmm.
actually happening under the hood and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about engineers being replaced by AI. More so, we're using it to just advance our learning, understanding,
Hmm.
and we're using the tools to help us do our jobs better. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with you. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I completely agree with you. I think it's such a phenomenal tool to stack the skills that you already have and improve and speed that up. And if everybody uses it that way, phenomenal. But it doesn't seem to be the case. I'm not sure if there's ever been a situation in your team internally in which someone was trying to use AI and it maybe might have messed some things up or it didn't mess some things up. Have you ever had a situation like that with using this, I guess, newer technology that everybody's getting used to?
Not so much on our end. I mean, we're in the business of education, so we're using AI, to help us build curriculums faster. We use it internally to just to streamline our deliveries. Essentially, we use AI.
Hmm.
But then also working with our students, like, hey, you're never going to be actually stuck on something ever again. We teach them how to chat with AI, how to talk to
Hmm.
it, almost like a rubber duck concept where the AI becomes another engineer that you can talk to about how you want to learn. And we teach them how to use AI to where it's not just spoon feeding you the answers, but helping you truly understand what the logic and problem is that you're trying to solve.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, in terms of our world, at least from an education business, it's pretty difficult for AI to screw us up, I think.
That's always good news to hear. And when it comes to obviously you've been GameDevHQ has been around for a little bit over 7 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, 7 years now.
A little bit
Yeah, I
over.
think we're going on 8 years. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
17.
it's been a little while. So just close to it, just turning around the corner on a decade. How has it been building a company from scratch? And really, what are some of the challenges that you faced coming up and developing what you have now? And is there a chance that any of those challenges still exist for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, the life of an entrepreneur is, I don't recommend it to anyone, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, man, it's a special kind of person that can do it. I think Alex Hormozy said it best. It's like literally, it's literally like eating glass you go through these really high highs, but then you go through these really low lows.
Hmm.
Throughout the years, I mean, the last 7 years, man, or 8 years now, it's been a constant battle of, where's the next dollar coming from? Market pivots. I can't tell you how many times we've pivoted GameDevHQ's business model. We started off, on the Udemy platform. We did a partnership with Unity. We launched our programs. Today, we've trained over 200,000 students across 136 different countries. We've had a lot of success in different types of product deliveries. Our big thing was during the pandemic, we created a workforce development program in partnership with the state of Hawaii.
Hmm.
Headed this $10 million initiative that was designed to diversify Hawaii's economy. And to my surprise, we got people jobs earning $85,000 to $120,000 in 90 days, working as software engineers, working in Hawaii remotely for California and Washington companies, bringing that taxable revenue to the islands. And so
Mm,
it kicked off our whole workforce development path. And that's what we've been focused on the last 4 years. And it was great because interest rates were sub zero and it was free to lend basically. And so we were changing lives of so many people who've never made more than 40K in their life. And they were looking for
mhm,
an opportunity to transition their careers, things like that. The last year we hit a lot of struggles. We partnered majorly with this organization called Unity Technologies. Today, it's the largest game engine manufacturing platform in existence. 50% of all games are made with it. 90% of the XR industry uses it.
mhm.
And they had a crazy PR nightmare where they literally lit themselves on fire September of 2023. Their CEO got like annexed from the company. It was this whole thing of they really it was a lesson of wow, I put all of the eggs of GameDevHQ on the
Mhm.
reputation of this one company. And
And
so
how
we
did that
had to
turn out?
yeah, yeah. So it was that on top of rising interest rates where we were like, oh shit. So we really had to figure out how we're going to pivot in 2024 to where the private loan market, the interest rates used to be 4%, 8%, and they
Mhm,
skyrocketed to nearly 30% here in the US, which is just ridiculous. And when it comes to in America, those who need the education most could not get the financing they need
mhm.
for it. So we had to rethink our business model and we ended up exploring opportunities actually outside of the US. So like right now we're actually launching like a school of engineering in Uzbekistan of all places.
Interesting. And I'm assuming that's because of the COO, I believe you said? COO
No,
that.
so yeah, so we have a managing director of GameDevHQ now in Uzbekistan that handles the operations on the
Yeah.
ground for Uzbekistan.
That's really, really interesting. And I would love to just, one, congratulate you for everything that has come around so far with helping so many people that sometimes, and I've found it that it's not even because of people's choices, it's just because people are uneducated on what's possible with the experience and the knowledge that they have, right? So being able to transform someone's life from never made more than 40,000 a year to getting to 80,000 plus is so, so awesome, especially in the condition that you described in how that story went about, which is phenomenal. So congratulations on that. And I also wanted to ask as well, you mentioned that at one point figuring out where the next dollar was coming from might have been the maybe the quote unquote the largest issue in any business, right? We want to know where the money's going to come from, right? How has that trickled down into where you're at now today, and how does that challenge compare to the challenge that you have today?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different today. So the last year we thought we could wait out interest rates. Like I said, we were a team of 18 in January of 2024.
Hmm.
Our revenue, we went from a 77% approval rating for loans in 2023 down to less than 1% in 2024. And so you can imagine how like a crippling halt that was to the business. And we tried to we tried to wait it out. You know, the US was talking about interest rate cuts and they just never came. It wasn't until about June where I decided that I'm sorry, like we tried and we're done. Like our payroll was literally like $88,000 a month, and we were just waiting out this storm, and it just never settled. So we did a big layoff unfortunately in June, and we kept trying to figure out pivoting with our production team, and we were looking at Unreal Engine. We were working on some curriculum since January, and we thought we could weather the storm basically.
Hmm.
But ultimately, what it came down to was we didn't believe the interest rates were going to come down. We were at less than 1% approval rating, and if you got approved, it was ridiculous. You're looking at 30% interest rates. Our $21,000 program, which was a fraction of what universities cost for a CS degree, got to a point where with the interest rates, it was almost $50,000 for the same education, and the cash advances. The way they work in the private loan industry for code schools is
Hmm.
we get like 52% of that. So we were like, interesting. So, and it's 50% the principal, none of the interest. That all goes to the lenders. So we're just like, wow, this is so predatory and criminal. Like, we're just like, no, I'm not gonna sell these anymore. Like, this is stupid.
Hmm.
So we completely pivoted our model. At that time, Uzbekistan was kicking off. There were some interest opportunities there. I could write a book on the story of Uzbekistan, but I'll give you the elevator pitch of what happened there.
Sure.
So in June, we're thinking about how we're pivoting this. I just laid off half our team members.
Hmm.
And I get this email from a guy in Uzbekistan who was a student of mine from 6 years ago. He took a course on Udemy, got a job at Ubisoft, moved to France, and then he moved back to Uzbekistan to take a job with the government and the Ministry of Digital to help like do tech innovation. moved up into a position of power and invited me to the country to convince me that, hey, we want you to open an academy here in Uzbekistan, and they're going to provide the highest level of government support and all this other stuff. And basically, we walked away with raising $2 million, and we are launching a school of engineering in Uzbekistan. And what it allowed us to do was completely change the American business model to where it's no longer about student private loans, it's about creating equitable education for all. And so we launched the new Level Up Accelerator, where
Mm.
our historic $21,000 program that was inaccessible to so many, if you were lucky enough to get one of those loans, we didn't have anything else for you at that time. So it was literally get approved for a loan or try again in 3 months. To where now our entire curriculum that was $21,000, it's literally through this new Level Up Accelerator, it's available for everyone at $97 like a month, and they get access to all of the career coaching, the support, the one-to-one technical stuff, and the US business model just runs off that, making it equitable for all here
Mm.
while we build out new curriculum that has been commissioned by Uzbekistan.
That is so interesting. And how has that changed your viewpoint in trying to grow the business and looking at it from like a global lens as opposed to a US focused lens?
Oh, dude, man, the international the international opportunities are significantly wider than America. Don't get
Hmm.
me wrong, America is awesome for business, but holy shit, the international waters, there's opportunities, there's less red tape,
Hmm.
especially when you're in the education space. So here we have the Department of Education. It's like pulling teeth to do anything remote, to do anything alt education wise that doesn't go with the norm of society. That might change with the new administration coming in, but the Department of Ed still has all this red tape. Almost 99% of the world operates very differently, especially in the private education sector overseas, where we are bringing American engineering curriculums and they are hungry for it. And so they're like, hey, we'll take your curriculum and turn it into a degree program here. That's impossible to do in the US.
Mm. So in a sense, they have more freedom into the usability of the skills that are acquired or learned from in the US. Is that correct?
1000%. In the US, if you're going to create new curriculums, it requires a board. It requires like 2-3 years to get things approved. In Uzbekistan, in the UAE, throughout half of Europe, you have this curriculum. Sweet, let's implement it by the fall.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned the UAE as well. I've had a couple conversations with people from the UAE and the incentive that they have behind
Oh yeah,
growing things like this is humongous.
yeah. And we're looking at the UAE right now. We're looking at some advisory firms and doing
Yeah.
an expansion plan into UAE. I mean, the economics are just out of this world there. The level of wealth you start to realize. I don't know if you've ever been to the UAE, but
Not yet. Hopefully this year.
dude, I was just in Dubai and it's incredible. The Burj Khalifa is insane. You start to realize when you're over there, America's not the greatest city. Or, I'm sorry, America's not the greatest country. We do not have the greatest cities. If you want
Hmm.
to see the greatest cities in the world, go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. I have a couple of friends that do live out there. Some in Abu Dhabi, some in Dubai. I'm also a big fan of Formula One, so that's
Oh,
been a
yeah,
big
yeah, yeah.
thing that's happening out there. So it's always nice to like see those things and yeah, the infrastructure and the but yeah, it's interesting to see how much once they have that drive to accomplish something, it's like okay, let's do it. Why should we put any obstacles in front of it?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and the level of wealth opportunity there, it's yeah, that's I found the American dream of all places in Uzbekistan, but man, it's also in other places and the UAE is definitely one of them.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to obviously sometimes layoffs and unfortunate situations have to happen in a business, but on the opposite end of that coin is building a culture and getting people on that are driven for the same mission that you've built for the company and getting them along and working together for and towards that mission. How do you think about building culture, hiring team members? Would you give any insights into your perspectives on the most effective ways to do that and some of the lessons that you've learned along the way when doing that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think one of my biggest weak point, I think, is managing people. It is such a hard skill, and finding people that truly have buy-in to your company, who do the things they need to do to help grow it without being asked or being told. Finding those A players when you have them, hold on to them because man, I'm sure even in your business you've had people where it's like you have to if you don't provide the roadmap for them, then it just isn't going to happen. There's people who they see the opportunities, they recognize growth expansion things, and they just do it. They do the thing that needs to be done without you saying it or telling them.
Hmm.
When it comes to culture, though, I mean, you want to have the best people, and you have to pay a lot sometimes for that. And like we've done that. We had the best curriculum developers on the planet working for us, and all of them were making six figures or more. And to sustain that, especially in 2023, it really sucked to have to let some of them go because
Hmm.
it was just like, damn, from a culture perspective, is it a morale kick to the nuts? Absolutely, right? Like we tried to wait out this storm, and I looked at it as like it's hard to describe it. I waited till June to do this massive layoff. I waited as long as I could, and I did that off of I really like these people on my team. And at the end of the day, though, it just got to a point where it's like, shit, this business is just going to go to zero if we keep this up. So sometimes you just have to make those tough decisions where eventually you have to actually just look at the business and be like, okay, this is no longer an emotional decision. We have to immediately pivot and change what we're doing.
Hmm.
Um,
And go ahead, please, your thought.
no, no, yeah, I was just gonna say, when it comes to like, when it comes to hiring, something I've recognized it and learned over the years is no one's ever gonna work as hard as I am on this business. I spend 100 hours a week, whether I'm working or not. The thought of this business is constantly in my head. So it's not a matter of being in the business or on the business. It's just this is my life, making this thing into a 10 million annual revenue business yearly, and it's like I don't want to do anything else. But no one
Hmm.
else on my team will ever work as hard as I do, and I don't expect them ever to do that. And so
Yeah.
I think coming to that realization that at the end of the day, they just like I can't expect them to do that
Hmm.
helps me realize that hey, you know what? Treat them right, pay them well, and they will show up for you.
Yeah, I really relate to what you just said there, which is no one is going to ever have that drive and really want to achieve the things as much as you will. And it's interesting because it's it's something that it's not it's like it occupies so much real estate in our minds
Mhm.
that, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but out with family, out with girlfriends or whoever it might be, and there's always a little thought of like, I remember that thing that I have to do and I wish I can do it this way, and so when then I do it this way, it's always just that unraveling, the continuous unraveling of those thoughts,
Yeah, my
and being
business
okay
is
with that.
never off. It's never off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I, yeah, really empathize with the lesson that you just mentioned, which is just being okay with that, because they shouldn't. There's no reason for them to care as much as we do, because we are the creators of what we created.
Yeah.
It's unreasonable for us to have that care, to expect that care from them. And a last question here for you, John. When you were building this company, obviously, you guys have reached a great level of success, many ups and downs, and now looking at many great plans in the future ahead and opportunities globally. What's one thing that you wished you knew earlier when you started and when you were building that would have made your life so much easier right now?
Dude, read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I waited 18 years to read that book, and that
Well,
book
actually,
changed my business overnight.
yeah.
Oh, you got a copy? Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Overnight, that book followed by the four quadrants that also Robert Kiyosaki wrote. Overnight, my business became an S business into a B business, and we did our first seven figures that year. And it was just overnight the mindset of business, and how the difference between being in your business and working on your business, and starting to delegate things out. Because the moment you start doing that, that's when you start building a seven figure scalable business. You start to realize that if I stop working, then revenue stops coming in. And as
Hmm.
soon as you get away from that, yeah, you're set. So definitely, I knew the book existed like 15, 18 years ago, and I just didn't read it. And man, the moment I did, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, and is there anything throughout the book that is a constant repeat in your head that you always remember yourself, like, this thing, if I just keep doing this thing more and more and then do it better and then keep that cycle forever, not forever, but at a constant, then what you want will always happen. Is there anything like that that jumped off from the
Yeah,
book?
I think so. It's the fact that people work for money, and I don't do that anymore. And so that's the number one mindset shift that I think I needed to hear. And I struggled for a long time with employees. Why would they want to work for me? I'm an entrepreneur, so my mind was so wired differently from the employees where I struggled so hard with I don't understand why are you working so hard for me? Why and I say it to my wife all the time who used to work for in healthcare, like why do you work so hard at your job? Like whether you work 40 hours or 80 hours at that job, you're paid the same. Versus at least if I'm putting 100 hours into my business, it's going to benefit me and my family. It's going to grow to whatever I want it to grow at. And that book helped me realize that it's easier for people to not change and accept that they just want to work for a living, and that's fine. And that I think that's the thing that I come back to all the time in that book. is recognizing that people want to be ease. They want to be employees, and that's fine. If you want to be an employee, then fantastic. Show up
Very
every
much
day,
so.
be an employee. And as soon as you start recognizing that that's what they are, your expectations of them become very clear and measurable and just accepting
Yeah.
is the best way to put it.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for sharing your insights, telling me a little bit more about your business, kind of what's been happening as of late. Where should people go if they want to keep up with you, learn more about what you do, and have a little bit more depth into Game Dev HQ?
Yeah, definitely. So pretty active on LinkedIn, and you can check out Game Dev HQ.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Really
man.
appreciate it.
Thanks.